What if your mind feels noisy not because you think too much, but because too many things are left unfinished? You might notice it in quiet moments. When you finally stop moving, the noise doesn't stop with you. Thoughts jump in, fragments of conversations, things you meant to do, things you decided not to do, but never fully let go of. It doesn't feel like one clear thought. It feels like many small ones talking at once. That's mental noise. And it's easy to assume it comes from overthinking. But most of the time, it doesn't. It comes from unfinished loops. The human mind is very good at starting things. It opens questions. It considers possibilities. It reacts to information, but it's not as good at closing them. Every message you don't reply to but remember replying to later. Every decision you postpone. Every idea you explore halfway and then abandon. None of these feel heavy in the moment, but they don't disappear. They stay open. And an open loop doesn't sit quietly in the mind. It stays active in the background, waiting for completion. The mind treats unfinished things differently from finished ones. A finished task can rest. An unfinished one keeps signaling. Not loudly, just persistently. That's why mental noise doesn't feel dramatic. It feels crowded, like having too many tabs open, all playing sound at very low volume. Individually, they're easy to ignore. Together, they're exhausting. Modern life creates unfinished loops constantly. Information arrives faster than it can be processed. Decisions stack up faster than they can be resolved. You're exposed to ideas without context, stories without endings, problems you're aware of but not responsible for. Your mind opens a loop simply by noticing, and noticing has become unavoidable. The mind wasn't designed to hold this many open states at once. It evolved to deal with immediate situations. Something happens, you respond. The loop closes, but now most things don't close. They just fade into the background, half resolved. So the mind stays slightly alert, not because something is wrong, but because something is still pending. Mental noise isn't chaos. It's unfinished business without a deadline, and silence makes it more noticeable. When there's no external sound to focus on, the internal noise becomes clearer. That's why quiet doesn't always feel calming. It removes the cover. It reveals how much is still running in the background. The mind doesn't like loose ends, not because it needs perfection, but because open loops demand energy. Each one requires a small amount of attention to keep track of. You don't feel this consciously. You feel it as tension, as restlessness, as mental fatigue without a clear cause. This is why trying to clear your mind often fails. You're not dealing with thoughts. You're dealing with unfinished processes. And the mind won't go quiet while it thinks something still needs to be handled. Even if that thing is vague, even if it's no longer relevant, even if you don't remember exactly what it was. The noise isn't the thoughts themselves, it's the state of incompletion. Mental noise feels personal because it is. It's made up of your context, your obligations, your unclosed chapters. That's why it can feel loud even when nothing is happening. Your mind isn't being attacked by thoughts. It's holding on to them, waiting for a signal that never comes. And because modern life rarely provides clear endings, the loops stay open longer. There's always more information coming, more updates, more things you could look into. So the mind never gets confirmation that it's done. It never hears that's finished. Instead, it hears maybe later, over and over again. That's not a flaw. It's a mismatch between how the mind works and how the environment behaves. The mind expects closure. The environment provides endless input. So mental noise becomes the default state, not because you're anxious, not because you're unfocused, but because you're surrounded by things that don't end. This also explains why doing nothing can feel uncomfortable. When activity stops, the open loops don't. They surface. They remind you they exist. Not aggressively, just insistently. And that insistence feels like noise. But mental noise isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that too much has been left unresolved. Not in a dramatic sense, in a very ordinary human one. The mind isn't asking for silence. It's asking for completion. Even small ones, a clear end, a closed loop, a moment where nothing is pending. That's why true quiet doesn't come from fewer thoughts. It comes from fewer unfinished ones. So what if your mind feels noisy because it never finishes anything? Not because you failed to focus, but because nothing ever really told your mind it was done.